Good morning, everyone. So, I haven't been able to schedule a proper Coffee and UFOs series with guests. So, I thought since I start my mornings off covering UFO news on my own and paranormal news, and it's the beginning of 2021, why not just do a solo Coffee and UFOs and look back on the year and what's to come? There's so much, so much happening within just the past several weeks. So we'll cover that and a little bit more. All right. So very recently in the news dropped the Harvard professor says an alien visited in 2017 and more are coming. And I think many of us are familiar with Avi Loeb at this point, but the fact that he's coming out with a book to actually cover this is quite impressive. Avi Loeb, the chair of Harvard's Department of Astrology, believes he's already found some of that garbage. He thinks that alien garbage is floating through our solar system. In his upcoming book, Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, out January 26th, which I have already pre-ordered on Amazon, so I'm very excited about that. The professor lays out a compelling case for why an object that recently wandered into our solar system was not just another rock, but actually a piece of alien technology. The object in question traveled toward our solar system from the direction of Vega, a nearby star 25 light years away, and intercepted our solar system's orbital plane. On September 9th, its trajectory brought it closest to the sun. At the end of September, it blasted at about 58,900 miles per hour past Venus's orbital distance. And it goes on, of course. And, so Oumuamua, which we are all familiar with at this point, so I'll go back up here so you can see, is just the beginning as far as Avi is concerned. And, there's a lot to be said with someone who has credentials. And recently, as we all have heard, the former Israeli space security chief, Haim Eshed, out of Israel, made claims about a galactic alien federation. And people said, well, he's older, right? That he's his imagination, his speculation is unchecked at this point, simply because of his age. But I don't know if that's entirely fair. Why can't we say that Avi Loeb, Harvard professor, also is extrapolating his own hypothesis and theories to fulfill some, imagination that was conjured up when he was a child, and he's just kind of projecting his hopes and his foresight, imagined foresight, if you will, on based around his science for the future to come. I don't know, but it is possible, and I feel that if we're willing to take Avi Loeb at his word, why not take Haim? Why not take Haim Eshed at his word as well? So both of these links and all the articles I covered today, the links will be in the description. If you're familiar with Paranormal Now, you'll know that my pacing right now is much slower because my coffee has not kicked in yet, but it will soon. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me this morning. I don't know if this is something I'll continue to do, but I think it's kind of fun just to hang out and catch up. So the debrief here, written by Ryan Sprague and Tim McMillan, covers what, again, many of you heard on December 28th. President Donald Trump signed into law an omnibus spending bill allocating $1.4 trillion in federal funding for the 2021 fiscal year. Built into that is a note that the UFO task force is charged with reporting their findings on UAPs within 180 days. This must include a detailed analysis of data of the FBI, which was derived from investigations of intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomena data over restricted United States airspace, ... and an assessment of whether this unidentified aerial phenomena activity may be attributed to one or more foreign adversaries. According to the Debrief, Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence and former staff director of the United States Senate Intelligence Committee, said, "Consequently, it's now fair to say that the request for an unclassified report on the UAP phenomena enjoys the support of both parties and both houses of Congress," said Mellon, who is also a former staff director of the Senate Intelligence Committee. So what does this mean? Is this going to be just another blue book? Are we going to get a whitewashing of reports? Well, I think what's interesting here is Lou Elizondo also recently noted that he will not be a part of the TTS to the Stars Academy anymore moving forward in 2021. And he revealed this with George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM. Knapp's guest was Lou Elizondo, the former intelligence officer for the U.S. Army and Department of Defense, who has been at the center of many UFO disclosure developments over the last 3 years. Elizondo indicated that he, Chris Mellon, and Steve Justice will be departing to the Stars Academy. Elizondo proposed the creation of a large, permanent, well-funded UFO research program. So is this in tandem with the knowledge that they have of the new UAP task force? Are there people inside that task force that they have communication with and open dialogue, and perhaps will work in tandem with to reveal more UAP videos and other evidence? I think it's possible. Elizondo has hinted that the more is to be revealed, some things that are much more interesting than what we've seen so far. So that brings me to a comment that Lee Spiegel said on our show 2 weeks ago on Paranormal Now. And I'll just play a little bit here. And I was asking him in regard to his comment earlier about working with other people on new projects with James Fox. And so it's odd that Lou Elizondo said he's going to be working with with new people. And then I have Lee Spiegel and James Fox teaming up with new people, whoever these people are or organizations are. And you have the new UAP task force that has 180 days to release this information. I could just be connecting things that are totally loosely, unrelated. But sometimes, that little hair goes up on your, does the hair go up on your neck? I don't know. You get that intuition that says something might be going on here. And I don't know. So I'll play this clip here, and I ask Lee a follow-up question in regard to that.
You don't want to go on camera and say that? I'll have another, please.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind my asking,
Yeah.
and because I know you can't reveal, but these benefactors, are they benevolent?
Yes. All that I will say, and I'm not sure when they want to be revealed for who they are,
Mhm.
I will say that who they are is a name that is well known throughout the world. That much I can say, and I don't really want to go much further than that because of the relationship that we have with them.
Sure.
But without them, we couldn't have got the project really off the ground the way it did, and even beyond the funding that we got from them. James at one point was running out of money, and he clearly talks about this. He had to get other money, other financing from people to finish the project.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an amazing thing. I don't know how much of his original hair he still has left on his head from just pulling stuff out. I mean,
But
when
he's been at this. So right now, what you didn't hear earlier is Lee speaking in regard to more evidence to be tested with metallics and apparently recovered craft material. And Jacques Vallée is working in tandem with James Fox and Lee Spiegel on this ongoing documentary project. I don't know what the incarnation of that next phase will be exactly, but Lee spoke about the fact that there is other material that needs to be tested, and as well as abduction, a topic of abduction brought into the next film as well. So they're expanding the scope of their research and working together as a team. And it does seem that Jacques Vallée is hyper focused now, unlike so many years past, on disseminating what he knows about recovered craft material, about what people have shared with him in regard to the UAP UFO phenomena. And obviously, Jacques Vallée, is very respected. And, Lee jokes earlier in the program about, what, Jacques has told him in private, but can't share publicly, at least not quite yet. So, and then these apparently benevolent benefactors that Lee is speaking of, again, it begs the question, right? Well, who are they that they wouldn't want to reveal themselves? So I just feel like 2021 is building up to another big drop. What exactly that is, I don't know. If we get more UFO videos or UAP videos like the gimbal, maybe that'll help push the narrative forward in the public, but I think only so far. I think it'll help. It'll keep the the verve of the subject alive, but we do need something just a step higher in regard to tantalizing evidence. And fingers crossed that this will be the year we do that. The initial testing on one piece of recovered craft material, alleged, in James Fox's Phenomena documentary that Lee and Jacques, together worked on this documentary, covered. And that piece apparently shows a makeup of a metal that is not natural here on Earth and looks like it is fabricated. And it's not known, apparently, to this lab to be fabricated by any factory or known source here on Earth. So it begs the question, is it some clandestine manufacturing program of this material, or is it off-world? So that's the next phase. And I'd like to see all these additional materials that apparently Jacques and others have be tested. For years and years, people saying they have materials, that's great. We all want to see that, but it's a lot of talk, a lot of initial testing, inconclusive results, which is tantalizing again, but it doesn't really tell us the whole story. So the next phase, I hope, will be legitimate scientific results from multiple tests. And I understand testing is expensive. And so, it's like when you get a hair of a recovered alleged Bigfoot and you send it in for initial testing, and, they're saying there's something anomalous about the DNA, that perhaps, there's a missing species. Usually that comes from an inconclusive result, and that the hair needs to go back for further testing and DNA testing, and that doesn't always happen because the claim is, it's just expensive. So, and I understand that to a degree. In this case, I think that unlike Bigfoot, for instance, this phenomena is so serious that, and being taken seriously by the mainstream that we have to follow through. We can't just tease over and over again. So, you know, I mean, 2021, thank you for starting the year off with this. Avi Loeb, thank you for keeping this narrative going in, the intellectual circles, because we need those minds to take this seriously as well. And moving forward in 2021, I think there's so much more to come. Something else I saw in the news that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to share with you. And this is Plant Consciousness, the fascinating evidence showing plants have human-level intelligence, feelings, pain, and more. So I thought this was interesting. It got me thinking a lot. I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend who was vegetarian. And, we had this conversation back and forth about whether it was ethical to eat plants if plants have consciousness. That's obviously humans have to eat unless you believe in staring at the sun and absorbing your energy and feeding that way, which I'm pretty sure has been debunked at this point, but I don't know. But unless that's how you're going to get your sustenance, even if you don't want to eat sentient mammals, right? You have to eat food. But now this article by Stephen Howard Bunner discusses this, and he states that the plants, quote, do have a brain. It's just that no one ever looked in the right place, unquote, and claiming that they may have feelings just like us because they create and use neurotransmitters identical to our own, apparently. Our brain perception is backwards when we look at a plant, so we think of plants as upright, but in fact, it's more like the brain is in the soil, right? So they're when we look at the tendrils of the roots, it does look much more like neurons in our own brain. So I think it's easy to imagine that and to make that connection. But does that really mean it's a brain? And the explanation here is that all those neurons, the brain matter that we have, the pink stuff, for the plant is the soil, right? So if you can imagine that that's the brain matter and the neurons are the roots. It's an interesting theory. Now, these roots with the neurons and neurotransmitters communicate with all parts of the plant, not just the root system, and they derive information and process it there. They have dopamine, serotonin. They make use of neuroactive compounds like we do. But does that make them conscious? Well, I guess the argument is that they use adaptation and analysis in their apparent, neurological processing. So, for instance, some tests were done where plants were in a room that was sprayed with chloroform, in a tent, I'm sorry, and they were essentially numbed from the pain, and they did not go into shock when replanted. So normally when you replant a tree, you have to worry about its health because it goes into shock. And you don't know if it's going to survive or not, right? Well, when they sprayed these plants with chloroform and then replanted them, there was no negative reaction from the tree. So it's like when we go in to a surgery, obviously, if you were to operate on us while we're conscious, that would be, detrimental, and things would not go well. We would be in shock. We would react. Our system would overreact. So in a sense, it's like they're numbing the mind of the plant. I don't know if that's entirely true. I don't know how much I believe that. I think it's fascinating to think that plants have some, not self-awareness, but a consciousness, a thinking in a sense. But a robot, for instance, we could program a robot to interact in the world, right? It has sensors. And so it will know when it walks close to a cliff to not take that next step because it would be in danger. You can build sensors on a robot to know that if there's certain chemicals in the air for it to stay away, smoke, for instance. Now, all that's a lot of information and processing you can build into an AI. but that doesn't mean the AI itself is self-aware. And that's my, that's where I can't walk with him all the way on this. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is really interesting. He says, and I'm not sure about this, but Stephen writes, quote, alcohol he found did indeed get a plant drunk. It, as in us, induced a state of high excitation early on, but as intake progressed, the plant began to get depressed, and with too much, it passed out. The plant, he says, felt drunk. But how do we know it's depressed in the same way as humans? I mean, if a plant is not getting enough water, if it's malnutrition, if there are mites taking over this plant, it hurts the plant's mechanism, but does that mean the plant itself is depressed? Plants send out chemical signals to other plants. Studies have been done where, if you cut or damage a plant, that a single person cuts and damages a plant, leaves the room, comes back, that plant has a reaction when that same person returns. That certainly would indicate intelligence, but I don't know if that's quite the same as being self-aware in a sense of having a psyche. Plants do move to some degree. They communicate as communities. And the root system of plants and trees in particular, trees that live for decades and decades, are also interacting with mycelium of mushrooms, right? So, stacked on each other, built up, they're approaching the level of number of neural interactions as the human brain. But I don't know if simply the number and amount of neuro interactions equates to the same sort of brain functioning that we have. But I think that more studies need to be done in this regard. I think it's fascinating, but I'd hate to think that I'm eating a plant and it's it's suffering because we're eating a tomato. But maybe I don't know. That's almost worse because a plant would be alive rather than an animal that you would kill. You would cut off its consciousness, right, and then eat it. You're not eating it alive. So what happens with the plant if you're picking it? I think I appreciate Stephen Howard Bunner's article here, and I think that there is obviously something to be said about the Gaia theory, that there is a super intelligence, if you will, on the planet, and maybe a whole ecosystem in and of itself is self-aware. Perhaps we can go there. I know it's abstract metaphysical, but maybe. But does the leaf itself have self-awareness? Does the single tree or the single plant have self-awareness? I don't know. Another article is all dark matter in the universe could be primordial black holes. Now, this I thought was super fascinating. And again, all these links will be down in the description below. So essentially, this theory, which it fits apparently with Einstein's theory of relativity, claims that there are a multi-universe of little mini universes within our own, and the byproduct of this is the explanation of dark matter. And so this comes out of scitechdaily.com, and the telescope is located in Mount Mauna Kea, Hawaii, at the Kavli Institute for the Physics and Mathematics of the Universe, which studies black holes potentially formed in the early universe. Primordial black holes is what makes up dark matter. And so they could have been made by baby universes created during the inflation of these mini black primordial holes. And so these are called, quote, daughter universes. They would collapse. So they explain this, that the internal observer of these mini universes would see a baby universe as expanding, whereas us, the external observer, would see it as a black hole. So it's a matter of perception, and that's kind of the problem with dark matter is trying to figure out what exactly it is, and it's about sensors, perception. How do we measure this thing? So if we can wrap our brain around it that way, if there's sort of inverted daughter universe, mini baby universe, and we don't see it, that doesn't mean it's not releasing dark matter or creating dark matter. Now, beyond the event horizon, they say, of this black hole is the mini universe. So if we could only just see beyond the event horizon. And so in our own universe as it is, there would be this, multitude of universes. I think that's really fascinating but it begs the next question of, well, what's happening within those mini universes? It doesn't really go on much further in detail as to what it's like within those universes. So I think I'd like to follow up and find out more about that. Okay, so the first HSC observations have already reported a very intriguing Canada event consistent with a PBH, primordial baby. Is that primordial baby? Oh no, I'm sorry, primordial black hole with the universe, with a black hole mass comparable to the mass of the moon, encouraged by this first sign. And guided by the new theoretical understanding, the team is conducting a new round of observations to extend the search and to provide a definitive test of whether PBHs, primordial black holes, from the multiverse scenario can account for all dark matter. Okay. And this is why I need to drink more coffee in the morning, so I can wrap my brain around some of these ideas. So I guess as they continue the study, we'll learn more. I wanted to add this 2021 release, again, super cool. Another, check mark for UAP and UFO, progress in the field of research. So the Department of Defense releases officially the historical Navy videos, those that were released in 2017 by To the Stars Academy in accordance with, or together with the New York Times. So that's official. Great, good news. That link is down below. If you want, you can actually download those videos directly. And usually, when you're looking for the tic-tac-toe UFO, the gimbal UFO, there's a watermark by someone else who has posted it online. If you go directly to the Department of Defense, then you can download those videos directly. Now, I think the biggest, most fascinating news drop of the year is actually this right here, and I'll play this for you.
UFOs? Any UFOs? Did you ask about that?
Certainly asked about it.
And?
Can't tell you. Sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a yes. Because if there were none,
Why
you'd
not?
say there was none, right? You just played your hand. I thought you were a poker player. You just won 100%, showed your river card.
Feel free to think that.
I do.
All right, so for me, that's probably the biggest deal of the year. Finally, a follow-up to a question like that. Stephen Colbert was prepared. He knew what to ask to kind of corner the president, because obviously past presidents or others, talk around the subject with a non-answer. And in this case, his non-answer was really, not answering, and kind of gave it away. I mean, this is like as pretty close to disclosure as you can get from a president themselves. I mean, obviously an ex-president, but I thought that was huge. And I know Trump had, made some comments, interesting comments in regard to, what we know this year as well. So that was good to hear. But this was just point blank. He really cornered Obama, and he didn't deny it. He simply did not deny it. So this encourages me. Again, all this I feel like there's kind of a conjunction coming together in 2021 with all these different news drops, advancing the narrative and expectations of what's to come as far as released evidence to support those of us who do believe that there is a legitimate UFO phenomena, meaning extraterrestrials are, coming to visit us from off Earth. So that I thought was really fascinating. And then I would just want to leave us today with something that I appreciate. So Harrison Ford, aka Han Solo, made a comment in the news, and obviously for those of you who know me, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Cinema Blend, reposted something he said earlier that didn't get much attention, and so in a USA Today interview by Brian Alexander of USA Today, Harrison Ford was asked about Star Wars and his Force ghost in the Rise of Skywalker, and he says, "Don't tell anyone. I'm out. I'm not talking loud enough for your recorder. I have no effing idea what a Force ghost is, and I don't care." So, and I mean, I love this. You have Mark Hamill on the one hand, who's out and about all the time with the fans, talking Star Wars theories and what have you, and then you have Harrison Ford, who's just like, yeah, it was a role I played. And I really don't care about Star Wars theories, and I don't care so much about the universe. It just really lightened my day. So, and I think that's kind of an attitude to have in regard to a lot of subjects and things that we're involved in. How seriously do you take everything? Sometimes you just have to, work on the subject and then move on. Don't get stuck and hung up on things and lose your sense of humor. So anyway, thanks for hanging with me for this first solo Coffee and UFOs. I was totally improvising today, so we'll see how this turns out. But hopefully, we'll get back to the regular Coffee and UFOs soon, where I can bring out a guest and we'll have conversations. But I've just been so swamped that I haven't had a chance to do that. But I'd love to just kind of hang out in the morning too and just chat casually. Obviously, my demeanor and my tone is much more mellow than I am at night when my energy is peaking. And, so anyway, I hope all of you have a wonderful 2021 and keep drinking that coffee, tea, or whatever that keeps you going. And until next time, as always, live in the mystery.